Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So welcome brothers and sisters to our 11th and final installment in our series, a commentary on the last 10 chapters of the Qur'an. And we have reached the final chapter of the Qur'an, surah number 114, Suratun-Naas. And the background information that we would typically mention regarding each and every surah is very similar to the background information that we mentioned yesterday regarding An-Nas, because Al-Falaq, because these two surahs, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, are like sisters and were revealed simultaneously. And so as a result, we will elide that portion of our discussion and get right to the commentary, the tafsir of Surah An-Nas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, say I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind. In this chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He instructs humans to seek refuge in Him from the evil of whispering devils. As we're going to see, He specifically instructs us to seek refuge in a specific thing, and that is the whispering of devils. Whether those devils be from jinn kind or mankind. And He begins by mentioning His lordship as the primary source, or the primary object, or the primary means through which we seek refuge from Allah. And that is because He is the Lord of all things, including these devils that are whispering. The devils that He's telling us to seek refuge from, Allah is the Lord of those devils. And His lordship encompasses both allowing and preventing the occurrence of harm. His lordship encompasses what? Al-Qada wal-Qadr. The allowing, the decreeing, the willing of the occurrence of harm, or the preventing of the occurrence of harm, and not decreeing it and not willing it. So Allah ordered us to seek refuge with Him through His lordship, as if to say, seek refuge in the one and only one capable of preventing harm and procuring benefit in the absolute sense. He is your Lord and the Lord of what you fear. And what you fear cannot hurt you unless your Lord wills and decrees it, because He is what? Ar-Rabb, the Lord, the one who wills and decrees. So seek refuge bi Rabbin Nas, in the Lord of mankind. Malikin Nas, the King of mankind. Perhaps the one feared is a king, or another autonomous figure in a given land. Could be a president, could be a prime minister, could be a dictator, could be an autocrat. And he is feared because of his absolute unchallenged authority in the land. If he orders the seizure of a person's property, it is seized. If he orders that person imprisoned, he is jailed. And if he orders that person to be executed, his execution is what? He is executed. So Allah reminds us, because sometimes the thing that we're afraid of, the thing that we want to seek refuge with, the thing that we typically will turn to seek refuge with is some type of king. And we seek refuge because we think, oh, he's so powerful. If he says jump, the people will say, how high? So certainly He can protect us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us and says that He is the King of all kings, and that the will of earthly kings is governed and superseded by His will. So seek refuge in Him, the true King of mankind. Then He says, Ilahin Nas, the God of mankind. It conveys two layers of meaning. The first one, perhaps the one feared is perceived to be a deity or godlike figure with godlike supernatural powers. And it's not uncommon, even in Muslim communities, brothers and sisters, for people to be afraid of and therefore seek refuge in, or seek refuge with, magicians. People who practice voodoo and black magic. This is not uncommon in Muslim communities, that people actually will go to people like this to solve their problems, to protect them, or to harm someone who they fear is going to harm them, or who has harmed them. Some people similarly will do what? They will fear and seek refuge in the jinn. Or they'll fear the Dajjal. And some of them will seek refuge. When he comes, will seek refuge in him. Or evil spirits, etc. So what happens is that in the mind of a person, there is someone who is so powerful and has so much supernatural ability that they are worthy of refuge seeking or refuge being sought in them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds and says, the only true God is Allah. So seek refuge in Him, the true God, from the false gods. Don't be afraid of the false gods and let that fear cause you to seek refuge in them, but rather seek refuge in the one true God from these false gods. The second layer of meaning is seek refuge with Allah through worship and acts of obedience. So he mentions al-ilahiyya. He mentions the fact that He is the only deity entitled to worship, as if to say, seek refuge with Allah through worship and acts of devotion. Because this is how you entitle yourself to His refuge. The closer we are to Allah, the more we are entitled to His refuge. How do we draw closer to Allah? Through al-ibadah wa ta'ah, through worship and obedience. And B, other deities are powerless. In effect, they are powerless. Do not waste your time worshiping these other powerless deities and seeking refuge from them, when the only true God capable of providing refuge is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu wa Aduma Sultanu. Then Allah says, Min sharril waswasil khannas, from the evil of the retreating whisperer. What is intended by al-waswas is the devil. Specifically, the devil assigned to every person who glamorizes, and this devil glamorizes sin, immorality, and acts of disobedience, while hindering his associate, hindering the one to whom he's been assigned from doing good, and painting good deeds in his eyes in a negative light. This is the job, the assignment, the constant practice of this waswas, this devil who's been assigned to each human being, is that he paints good in a bad light and paints evil in a good light, and tries to convince us to do bad and tries to discourage us from doing good. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith collected by Muslim authority Ibn Mas'ud, he said, مَا مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا وَقَدْ وُكِّلَ بِهِ قَرِينُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. There is not a single one of you except his companion from the jinn has been commissioned to him. Al-Khannas is derived from Khanasa, which means to desist and retreat. The whisper is described thusly because he continues to whisper until a person remembers Allah, at which point he stops whispering and retreats. Allah goes on, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ, the one who whispers into the breasts of people. The intended meaning of sudur is actually, the intended meaning of breasts is actually the contents of the breast, meaning the hearts, which is the home, and this is mentioned specifically because the hearts are the home of our intentions, the home of our will, and the home of our desires. He wants to whisper there. Why? Because he wants to affect our desires. He wants to turn up our desires and make our desires something which overpowers us. He mentions desire, intent, or the heart, because it's the place of our intentions. He wants to corrupt our intentions. So even when we do good, we do it with the wrong intention and we don't get the reward. He wants to corrupt our will and make us what? People who lack the discipline to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what? The breast, the home of the heart. Ibn Abbas, he said, الشيطان جاثم على قلب ابن آدم فإذا سهى وغفل وسوس وإذا ذكر الله خنس. He said the devil perches on the heart of an individual. If he becomes distracted and heedless, the devil whispers. But if he remembers Allah, he retreats. Then Allah closes by saying, min al-jinnati wan-nas, from jinn and mankind. There are three possible interpretations for this last verse. The first one that the devil whispers in the breasts of men, of jinn kind and mankind, that the devil who whispers is an equal opportunity whisperer. He doesn't suffice himself with just trying to misguide humankind, but he also tries to misguide jinn kind as well. So Allah refers to both jinn and men in this verse as an-nas, people. So the meaning is basically that the whisperer, that he whispers in the breasts, min al-jinnati wan-nas, the breast of people, whether those people be from the jinn kind or mankind. And it's not uncommon for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to refer to jinn kind in the Qur'an as people. And a couple of examples, ala ujala, is from both of them from Surah Al-Jinn. The first one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. They seek refuge in men from the jinn. And he also says before that, in the beginning of the surah, he says, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. Say, it has been revealed to me that some persons from the jinn, listen to the Qur'an being recited. The second possible interpretation of min al-jinnati wan-nas is the words min al-jinnah, from jinn, are related to al-waswas, the whisperer, while the words wan-nas and mankind are related to shar, evil, and therefore the meaning is seek refuge from the evil of the retreating whisperer who is from the jinn, and seek refuge from the evil of mankind in general. That would be the second possible meaning of the verse. And last but not least, the meaning of min al-jinnati wan-nas is that the retreating whisperers that beautify evil and deprecate good can be from the jinn, but they can also be from mankind. So seek refuge in Allah from both of them. That some of the whisperers, or some of the whispering that we hear, it comes to us from what? It comes to us from that qareen. But some of the whispering that comes to us from what? From devils and whisperers, sneaky people from humankind. Lessons. What lessons can we take away from what we heard today, brothers and sisters? First of all, Allah is the Lord, and part of His Lordship is His decreeing and willing what does and does not occur. What He wills comes to pass, and what He does not will can never be. So, He, and He alone, is most worthy of being the object of the seeking of refuge. Why? Because if I seek refuge in Allah from X thing that I fear, and Allah decrees that X thing will not harm me, it will not harm me, no matter how devious that plot, no matter how well devised the machination. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills for me not to be harmed, I will not be harmed. Number two, from the lessons, Allah is the King of all kings, and so He is also, because of this, the most worthy of being the object of seeking refuge. If we are afraid of a king, if we are tempted to seek refuge in a king from what? From al-ins, from the human beings, we have to know that that king's power, that king's ability is governed and superseded by Allah's power and ability. And so Allah has more right and is more worthy of our seeking of refuge because He is the king of the earthly kings. Number three, from the lessons, Allah is the true God. There is no deity worthy of worship except Him. So no one should be worshipped other than Him, whether in the form of al-isti'adha, seeking refuge, or any other form of worship, which is another benefit from Allah saying, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. And closing with that, إِلَهِ النَّاسِ, I seek refuge in إِلَهِ النَّاسِ, that the true object of worship is Allah. And one form of worship is al-isti'adha, seeking refuge. And He should be the only object of that form of worship and every other form of worship. Number four, from the lessons, every person, brothers and sisters, has a qareen, a companion from the jinn, who glamorizes sin and discourages him or her from doing good. This qareen cannot be bribed or bought. There is no way to escape his influence except with Allah's help, which is why Allah says, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ min sharri al-waswas al-khannas. Seek refuge with Allah from the shar, from the evil of this whisperer, this qareen. Because why? Because the only one who can protect you from this qareen and prevent you from being influenced by him is Allah himself, Jalla Jalaluhu wa Aduma Sultanu. And if you notice in the Qur'an, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the shar, the evil of men, generally speaking, He gives us a method. He gives us a way that we can what? We can protect ourselves, we can defend ourselves, we can respond to the evil of mankind. For example, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ إِدْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Good and evil are not equal. They're not the same. So repel evil that comes from people with what is better than it, meaning good. Allah is telling you, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. You will find that the one who had previously been your most bitter enemy will become your most beloved friend. From who? From mankind. 90%, 95% of the time, you can win someone over by killing them with kindness. Allah is saying that. With what? With human beings. Gives us a method to respond to the evil that comes to us from human beings. Another example. فَمَنِ اعْتَدَى عَلَيْكُمْ فَاعْتَدُوا عَلَيْهِ بِمِثْلِ مَا اعْتَدَى عَلَيْكُمْ. Somebody from humankind transgresses against you, then you can what? You can transgress against them in a similar fashion. They push you, you can push back. They hit you, you can hit back. Right? Allah giving us a way that we can respond to the evil, protect ourselves from the evil, prevent the evil, etc. Right? Another example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, He talks about in the times of fear, when we are afraid of an enemy attacking us by surprise, some type of surprise attack, right? He says, for example, فَلْتَقُمْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْكُمْ فَلْتَقُمْ طَائِفَةٌ مَعَكَ وَلْيَأْخُذُوا أَسْلِحَتَهُمْ وَلْيَأْخُذُوا حِذْرَهُمْ وَأَسْلِحَتَهُم فَإِذَا سَجَدُوا فَلْيَكُونُوا مِنْ وَرَائِكُمْ. Right? So in this ayah, in Suratun-Naas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the way that we offer the fear prayer. And He says, let a group from amongst you stand with you, O Muhammad, stand up with you, and let that group, let them take their precautions and also take their weapons. So when you are praying with the other group, let them be what? Let them be behind you, guarding your backs. So Allah is giving us throughout the Qur'an, these are 3 examples, and there are many examples, countless examples, of how when we are afraid of human beings and their evil, how we should respond. Repeatedly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us advice on how to respond and protect ourselves from the evil of human beings. But whenever He mentions the evil of shaitan, He always tells us without fail to seek refuge with him from the shaitan. What is the message? You can't protect yourself from shaitan. You can't protect yourself from his influence. You can't ward off his influence. You can't bribe him. You can't buy him. He can't be bribed. He can't be bought. He is hell-bent on ruining you, destroying you, sending you to the hellfire if he can. And the only one who can protect you from the shaitan, whether it be your qareen or other shayateen, other devils, is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu wa Aduma Sultanu. So make it your habit, O Muslim, to actively seek refuge with Allah from the shayateen, from the devils. Allah goes on to say, the 5th lesson is one of the most potent weapons against the whispering of the devil. The whisperers of the devil. And his evil influence is the regular remembrance of Allah. The best weapon that a Muslim can protect himself with or use as a shield to ward off the whisper of the devil is what? Is the remembrance of Allah, the dhikr of Allah. And we mentioned the statement of Ibn Abbas that he said that a person إِذَا سَهَى وَغَفِلَ وَسْوَسْ. That if a person is heedless and the person is distracted and he's not mindful of Allah, then what happens? The shaitan comes and he what? He whispers. فَإِذَا ذَكَرَ اللَّهِ. But if he remembers Allah, خَنَس. He what? He retreats. And so we have to understand this is our weapon, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an encourages the Muslim to at all times busy himself with the dhikr of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ تَضَرُّعًا وَخِيفَةً وَدُونَ الْجَهْرِ مِنَ الْقَوْلِ بِالْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ وَلَا تَكُنْ مِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. He says, and remember your Lord within yourself in humility and fear, without being apparent in speech, in the mornings and the evenings. What? All times. In the morning, fill your mornings with the dhikr of Allah. When the evening comes, fill your evenings with the dhikr of Allah. Be mindful of Allah. And do not be among the heedless. Why? Because if you let your guard down, the shaitan will what? The shaitan will attack. And last but not least from the lessons, brothers and sisters, is that some human beings, underscore, human beings, promote evil. They glamorize it and paint it in a positive light. They are so eloquent and so charismatic, they are able to make good look bad and bad look good. A person stands up for morality and says that this should not be done. A woman should not appear in public in this way. These two people of the same gender should not be together. Somebody says that, and that person will paint that person as if they have cursed God himself. They will paint him as the most evil person, and a person who Muslims should hate and despise and ostracize. These people are so eloquent and skilled in the art of making good look evil and evil look good, that they will convince some Muslims that yes, this is how we should behave and conduct ourselves. These people also, they dress up falsehood in the cloak of truth. And we have to understand that they are what they are a part of or included in what Allah is saying when He says, "Min sharril waswasil khannas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas." Seek refuge with Allah from the evil of the devil that whispers in the breast of people. Min al jannati, from jinn kind, wan nas, and from humankind. There are human devils who whisper, who glamorize falsehood, glamorize sin, and deprecate truth, and deprecate morality and good deeds. And so, brothers and sisters, we cannot be fooled by these people, but should rather seek refuge with Allah from them. And this is very important in these times, where there are a lot of efforts external to the Muslim community and within our own community to misguide us and mislead us. And that is why we have to strengthen our attachment to the Qur'an and to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The more we read the Qur'an and the more we try to understand it the way it's supposed to be understood, the way the early Muslims understood it, the more we read the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and try to understand those hadith the way the early Muslims understood it and practice them, the harder it will be for these devils amongst the human beings to misguide us and lead us astray, to make truth appear false and falsehood to appear true. Brothers and sisters, I implore you, we have to be the people who are well read when it comes to our faith. We have to be the people who constantly, regularly read the Qur'an, and not just read the words, but try to read the tafsir, those credible books of commentary that explain what did Allah intend. People who read about their aqeedah, what are Muslims supposed to believe? Read about what Islam's position is on certain things that are going on in this world right now, particularly in our North American context. Things that people are promoting, whether they be Muslims or non-Muslims, whether they be knowledgeable people or laymen, and find out what does our religion really say about that, and take that as our position, and not let ourselves be shaken or confused by people who posit themselves as people of knowledge, people of truth, people of Islamic concern, and in reality they are from the devils who whisper in the breasts of men and seek to misguide them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. May He make us from those who listen to the talk and follow the best of it. May He make us from those who He teaches beneficial knowledge that will protect them from being misguided, and make us from those who benefit from that knowledge by putting it into practice. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.